Okay, so I think you're trying to factor this right here. And if you're trying to factor this right here, then you're trying to find a common term in this expression, which is these two right here. Like both of these have that same term, so you can factor that out. But when you factor that out, you're going to divide both of these by the lowest power of x, or by the lowest power of whatever you're factoring out. Like with this right here, if you were to factor this equation, you would factor it out. You'd factor out the lowest power of x, or the lowest power of what everything had in common. So here everything has an x in common, so x to the first power. So you'd factor out an x, and you'd get this right here for an answer. But what you're doing when you're factoring something out, everything has to have that same term, whatever it is that you're factoring out. In this case up here, it's x squared plus 1. That's the term that you're factoring out. But when you factor something out, essentially what you're doing is you're dividing each term in the expression by whatever you're factoring out. So you're dividing each term in the expression by whatever you're factoring out. So if we're going to factor out an x to the first power in this equation, then we're going to divide each term by that. So we divide each term by x, and then when you divide exponents, you just subtract them. So we're going to pull that x out front because we're factoring it out, and then we subtract the powers. So that would be x to the fourth plus 3x squared plus 4x, and those would just cancel because anything over itself cancels because that's just 1, and that's what we'd get, which is what we have right here. So on this equation, if we just factor out the lowest power of x squared plus 1, we're going to divide each term in the expression by the lowest power of x squared plus 1, which is going to be x squared plus 1 to the negative 1/2. So if we do that, we get x squared plus 1 to the negative 1/2, and x squared plus 1 to the negative 1/2. And since we're factoring that out, we can just write it out here on the outside. X squared plus 1 to the negative 1/2. And then just subtract the exponents, and that's what you're left with. So if we subtract the exponents on this one, we get 1/2 minus negative 1/2, which is, change the signs, 1/2 plus 1/2 is just 1. So we would be left with, right here, we'd be left with an x squared plus 1 to the first power, because we subtract the exponents, and that's what we're left with. And then here, those would cancel because anything over itself is just 1, and those will cancel, and you're left with a plus 2, and this right there is what you have after you factor out the lowest power of whatever you're factoring out, and in this case we're factoring out an x squared plus 1 to the negative 1/2. But technically you don't really want to leave any negative exponents, so you would move this down into the denominator to make the exponent positive. So your final answer would be x squared plus 1 plus 2 over x squared plus 1 to the 1/2. And that right there should be the final answer. and I'm pretty sure that that's right. So hopefully this helped. This is my first time ever making a little video to help somebody with a math problem, but hopefully it helped. Let me know if it did.